Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for a moment of silence.
Take a moment to remember the 7 police officers and 1 firefighter that have passed since our last board meeting.
Thank you. Please be seated. Okay, we've got a full schedule today, starting a little bit earlier, and we have some staff recognition. Chief, would you like to start that going?
Yes. I'll just use this. First of all, wasn't able to get in here tonight, but we have Jonathan Dickin, and he's our new radio technician. As it says, born in Phoenix, raised in Deer Valley, and joined the Marine Corps in 2015 and was discharged in 2023. And Johnny and his wife have 3 young daughters, and he likes working on cars. Pretty neat guy. As explained previously, brought him in a unique fashion, kind of as an apprenticeship role because of some of the quals. And we anticipated 90 days for him to get through these quals, and he did it in what? 30? Yeah, so he's qualled up and entering into phase 2. Great addition to the team, great sense of humor, and hopefully get Bob some more relief soon. So it'll be nice.
How does that look as far as full staffing? Are we still short a couple, or?
Depends on who you ask, or what analyses you evaluate.
Budget, yeah.
It fills our budgeted positions, and it gives him a depth that he hasn't seen since 2016, or 2018. So, yeah, we still have in this next fiscal year's proposed budget an additional IT personnel, and then that'll be full staff. But that's upon approval of this year's budget. So
right. Okay.
And then secondly, we want to recognize firefighter paramedic Phil Bruglio. He joined us in 2014, became a medic in 2017, and then qualified as an engineer driver in 2022. And Phil grew up in Scottsdale area, and prior to us, Phil spent a lot of time in prison from 2001 to 2010 as a supervisor of one of the wildland prison crews. And it's a unique deal because it's a unique perspective because he was managing prison crews, and so that's a unique set of skills. And then he came to us with a heavy set of wildland firefighting skills. So he's a great asset to this organization, and he has a calm demeanor because I would imagine in his prior career he had to, and he brings a calming environment to some of our chaotic scenes. So he's a great guy, and glad he's been here 10 years. So we'll get him his pin. That's what we got.
Okay. Well, our congratulations to the two employees. Look forward to seeing Woodville utilize his skills that he's honed and polished over the first 10 years and really put him into action this next 10 years and then kind of settle in on teaching the others on the last 10 years. So, okay, super. Congratulations.
As a point of order, is Gabe online or is he not in the Zoom room yet?
I am here, Chief.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I hear him.
Oh, there he is. All right.
We're going to turn the volume up, Gabe.
Okay, perfect.
I'll hear you loud and clear. Also, I apologize for my voice being a little gravelly with the hot weather and cold air conditioning. It took its toll on me, so bear with me. Okay, next item on the agenda is our public budget hearing. This is a budget that is long in coming, been scrutinized by every level of staff and operations, as well as this board. And so today is that day that we take a look at it and give it a yay or nay, but today is that day. Chief, is there anything you'd like to add or open up with?
No, we've discussed it, as you stated, at length. again, I want to thank staff and JVG for the hard work on getting everything put together. I'm excited to go in and be able to keep the mill rate flat and still accomplish our mission goals. So I'm looking forward to a productive year.
Very good. Gabe, was there anything you'd like to add before we get to public hearing?
No, Mr. Chair, I think, you and Chief have covered it perfectly.
Okay. Very good. Thank you. Okay, with that, I'd like to open up the public hearing for the fiscal year 2025 budget. As with all public hearings, there is a set of rules that we do have to abide by, regardless if there's one person, no person, or a room full of people. I'd like to remind all members of our community and board here and staff to maintain an acceptable level of decorum and respect. If you do choose to speak, please come up, state your name and your address, and keep your comments to 4 minutes. Chief, do we have any speakers?
We do not have anybody that wishes to speak.
Okay. With that being said, this is the easy part. This hearing for budget year, fiscal year 25 is now closed. That's how simple that is. So, but with that said, that leaves us with the budget before us. And with that, I would like to make a motion to approve the budget. Yes.
Board Chair, just before we actually vote, I'd like to say a few words.
Sure.
Great. I had the opportunity to say these at our last meeting, but this is our formal meeting, so it makes sense to reiterate that that it's just commendable, this budget and the work that Chief, you have done, and Assistant Chiefs, absolutely, and Dave and Sarah at JVG, because we've been in a time of heavy inflation, and yet our budget is only 2.51% from last year's budget, and that's really commendable. Medical supplies have gone way up higher than that, so have other costs involved in housing and uniforming our firefighters, and so just very commendable, and I want to congratulate everybody. This is an excellent budget.
Okay, and we'll have another opportunity in a moment. With that being said, I move to propose a motion to approve the fiscal year 25 annual budget of $24,440,081 at a mill rate of 2.7030 as presented. Do I have a second?
Second.
Do I have any further discussion? Okay. At this point, I'd just like to reiterate very briefly what Corey mentioned. It is a lot of work involved with everybody, and everybody pulled their belt a little bit tighter to get this thing passed. We are extremely fortunate to have an annual evaluation of the properties in our community such that allows us to keep the mill rate lower than most other communities. And don't think for a second that we look past that. We truly appreciate that, and it makes our job a little bit easier. But the fact remains that we all have to, tighten our belt a little bit. Even though this budget is slightly more than the previous one, it could have been much worse, but we've made the very best of it. So with that said, there isn't any other comment. All in favor of this budget, please say aye. Or yay. Or opposed? Okay, this budget is passed for fiscal year 2025. Thank you. Okay. With that, there is a resolution that goes along with that I will pull up as soon as my computer allows me to. Okay. And it has always been an honor to read these resolutions, even though some of them may be a little bit long, but nonetheless, they are worthy to be read. Resolution 2025-1, approval of fiscal year 2025 budget. A formal resolution of the governing board of the Sedona Fire District to adopt the 2025 fiscal year budget of $24,440,081 to encumber sufficient funds to cover outstanding items, purchase orders, checks, etc., from the previous fiscal year, less any cash and liability reserve, and to encumber any carryover amount to offset taxes, less any unreimbursed stop-loss payments, and any adjustments for uncollected out-of-district fire revenue occurred prior to June 30th, 2025. Establishing the balance to be utilized as our fiscal year end reserve fund balance, as per the Sedona Fire District Policy 2014-2 fund balance. Whereas Arizona Revised Statute Title 48 requires the Sedona Fire District to prepare an annual budget that contains detailed estimated expenditures for each fiscal year and that clearly shows salaries payable to employees of the district, and whereas the budget summary has been posted in 3 public places and a complete copy of the budget published on the district's official website for 20 days before the public hearing. And whereas public hearing was held on the proposed 2025 fiscal year budget on June 18th, 2024, in compliance with state law. And whereas the Sedona Fire District wishes to transfer $4,400,000 from the general operating fund to the capital fund in anticipation of future capital needs Sedona Fire District may have. And whereas the Sedona Fire District wishes to encumber any carryover amount to remain in the general fund as our fiscal year in reserve fund balance to be maintained to allow the Sedona Fire District to continue to provide services to the community in case of economic downturn and or unexpected emergencies or requirements, and to provide working capital in the first several months of the fiscal year until sufficient revenues are available to fund operations. Therefore, it is hereby resolved that the Sedona Fire District Governing Board adopt the 2025 fiscal year budget of $24,440,081 at a tax rate of 2.7030, including the 2025 wage scale, and encumbers sufficient funds to cover outstanding items, purchase orders, checks, etc., any cash and liability reserves for uncontrolled out-of-district fire revenues incurred prior to June 30th, 2025, to remain in the general fund as our fiscal year and reserve fund balance. This is approved and adopted this 18th day of June 2024. Signed, David Soto, Board Chairman, and Helen McNeil, Board Clerk. Thank you very much for all your work, and it was a long haul, but we got it done. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Gabe. Was there anything else you'd like to add to that?
No, I think I've talked a lot over this last couple of months on the budget, so I'm good.
Okay. I got him at a loss for words. Okay.
Yeah.
And as the resolution mentioned, the wage scale was mentioned in there also. And also we're also looking at the 2025 budget, including the pension funding, because we just talked about the salary schedule. And that is another document on here. Oh, here it is. Pete, would you like to talk a little bit about the pension funding chart that we got here?
Yes, of course. So, Mr. Chair, members of the board, you have before you, I'm sorry, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so Mr. Chair, members of the board, you have the annual pension funding policy for the district. Back in 2018, the legislator felt it was important to have greater awareness on how our pension system is funded within public safety. This is the updated policy that we've done a similar policy year after year, mainly updating our liabilities and funded ratios. The goal is obviously to reach it 100% funded following the actuarially calculated timeline of June 30th, 2036. We're going to do that by paying our annual contributions as calculated by the actuarial, as well as evaluate any type of additional funding that we may have if we are to get off track from that goal. And so with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions the board has.
And Mr. Chair, if I may, I've had a request from the board related to public safety retirement pension, the costs and how this system works. And the idea came up that the city of Sedona, their finance department presents a really good lecture on how it all works. And it was after that conversation, my suggestion that we schedule something like that, and I'll work with the city to get their format for January. So when we get the new board members, we can do it sooner, of course, but the thought was to do something like that in January so that the new members have a better understanding of how the system works. But again, we could do it sooner. If Ms. Cooper, if you want to speak to it.
Thank you, Chief. I brought up this subject because I'm also on the PSPRS board for the city, and on my first visit, which was a year ago, we had a really nice presentation of the pension, the condition it's in, fairly, detailed. And then just my last meeting, just last week, we had another annual presentation of how the PSPR was doing for the city, and it would be really helpful, I think, as board members for us to have that detailed presentation of our PSPRS board, which is different.
Yeah, and it would be specific to the Sedona status of Sedona Fire's pensioners, and it is this nebulous thing out there, and for somebody that's not versed in it, it could be confusing. I think it's a great idea. If the board wasn't opposed, I'll set it up.
Chief, you may want to, depending on what the city can do. I just finished the PSPRS training online, and there's a gentleman by the name of Harold Green who oversees their training. Okay. So that would be another resource for you as well.
Thank you.
Gabe, did I read it correctly that our goal is to be 100% funded by 2036? Is that correct?
Yeah, that's based on the actuarially calculated contributions.
Okay, and that's our goal.
Yep. I will point out it's a bit of a moving target as each year, it changes and fluctuates. But yeah.
Okay, so this document we have before us again is for funding for the pension funding for fiscal year 2025. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, then I go ahead and unless there's any other questions. Go ahead. I'll go ahead. Motion to approve the fiscal year 2025 budget pension funding as proposed in this report. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion? All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that pension funding is approved. Okay. Next item on the agenda is the election of fiscal year 2024 board positions to be seated in July of 2024. As you're aware, this is a voting year in that November 2 positions will become vacant, as myself and Janet are not seeking re-election. And with that said, we will remain on the board as board members for the full term. But that also brings us to filling the position of board chair at the moment. And I would like to open up to the board nominations for board chair. And this would be as of July 1, so that whoever is nominated and voted can have time to get with the chief and start settling in on this position. It gives them 6 months to do the full transition so that come January, we will move seamlessly from one board group to the next. And that's my goal. So with that said, I'd like to open it up for nominations if there's anybody who'd like to nominate anyone of us. Yep.
I nominate Helen McNeil for board chair.
Okay, Helen McNeil. Do you accept the nomination?
I do.
Okay. Is there any other nominations? Okay. Huh? Well, yeah, we're gonna get this one first. Okay, with that said, Helen has, accepted the nomination, and I will go to a vote. All in favor in, voting for Helen as the new board chair as of July 1, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? I did skip. Is there any further discussion?
Well, I did want to say
Okay.
that,
I'm moving fast.
I did want to say that it's very commendable of you, Chair Soto, and a very unusual step to step down. You know, people don't always give up leadership roles, quite so graciously, and thoughtfully to give, our new chair the opportunity to receive your guidance, and presence. So I want to say that to you. It's very commendable.
Well, thank you. It's something that we did when I stepped into the position as chair. I sat with the previous chair, about 6 months prior to, knowing that I had but just a couple years under my belt as a board member and accepting responsibility as a chair for this organization. I want to make sure I had all bases covered. And so, that very thing happened. And so I saw it only fit that we do the very same thing. So with that said, the motion was made, the vote was taken, and the vote was unanimous for Helen McNeil as our new board chair as of July 1.
Thank you.
But with that said, it also leaves us another vacancy for the board clerk. This kind of keeps on rolling. So for the board clerk, I'd like to open up nominations from any member of the board who would like to nominate another.
I would like to nominate, Corey Cooperman to be the board clerk and to take on that role and be a key part of moving the organization forward.
Okay, very good. Corey, do you accept the nomination?
I do accept.
Okay. Then with that said, move to vote Corey Cooperman as the board clerk. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, and I don't think there's any further discussion. Okay. So with that said, Corey Cooperman, congratulations. You are our new board clerk as of July 1.
Thank you very much.
All right. Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I, on behalf of staff, I just want to say thank you guys for your collaborative energy because, sitting on this side of the table for quite a few years now hasn't always been the case. So it's nice to see that you're putting district before self, and I think it truly shows that you guys are here because you care about the community and you care about the district. So thank you.
Thank you. It's been a great honor working here, and it's not even really working, it's just being part of this organization. Labor's been fantastic, admin's been super, operations has been great, but the community as a whole has been pretty doggone cooperative and agreeable, almost to the nth degree. You know, so, but it can't be 100%. We don't expect it to be 100%. And so we've had our challenges along the way, and we've faced them head on, and win, lose, or draw, it's made us all a better district, a better board, a better district, fire district. So thank you for those comments. All right. Now we're into our regular business. Hang on. Once again, do we have anybody from the public who wishes to speak?
We do not.
Okay. Our consent agenda is basically the May 21st, 2024 regular meeting minutes, which we've reviewed in our packet. I move to approve the consent agenda. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Second. Do I have any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The consent agenda is approved. Next up on the agenda is our financial report and updates from our Director of Finance, Gabe Buldrum. Gabe?
All right, Mr. Chair, members of the board, you have the May 2024 financial report in the packet. I'm sorry, perfect. Thank you. So starting off with the month of May, You'll see we brought in $849,043 in property tax collection, slightly under what we projected for the month. I'm sorry, under what we projected for the month by 102,000. However, you'll see when we get to year to date, we're actually slightly over. Non-levy revenue was at 294,234. We were under budget by 98,000. That was being mainly driven by wildland revenue for the month. That was under budget by 125,000, but offset by ambulance revenue being over budget for the month. Moving into our expenditures, personnel was at 1.6 million, or under budget by 326,000. Vacancies, as well as some savings in salaries and wages, as well as wildland deployment wages, and the associated benefits are driving that variance. Buildings and land, pretty much right in line with budget there at 24,965. Vehicles and equipment was over by $9,200, and that was mainly due to some repairs and maintenance on our apparatus. Communication and IT was also over budget by 15,000 for timing on annual subscriptions on our software. And then finally, managerial, a small variance of about $7,000. And that was due to professional services, mainly related to the recruitment of the telecom position. Overall, for the month, we were at $1,964,721, or under budget in expenses by $294,000. Sorry, $294,000. Moving on to year to date, we have 1 month left in the fiscal year. Total revenues are at $23.1 million, or a variance of $198. As I mentioned earlier, property tax collection is slightly over by about $4,700. And that's offset by non-levy revenues under by $4,500. And wildland revenue, again, is the predominant driver. Looking at our expenses, as we reported throughout the year, our total expenses in totality have been trending under. We're at $19,023,000 in total expenses, which is under budget by $1,387,000. And just to kind of point out and recap, that's one of the things in the resolution you adopted for the budget. It also directed us to transfer some of this surplus that we're seeing this year, as well as that monies that we plan to transfer to the capital fund for future capital expenses. Next slide. As far as budget expended, we've expended 86% of our budget, with 14% remaining for the month of June. Breakdown on the next slide there of where our expenses have gone. Personnel is our highest at 84% of total costs. Operations comes in at 7% of total costs. Communication 5%, and managerial 4%. And then finally, cash position, we ended the year with 19.7 total cash on hand, compared to 15.9 last year, the same time, or an increase of 3.8 million. Other assets decreased slightly from 25.7 to 25.2, and a lot of that is just the function of our annual depreciation. And then finally, total liabilities increased slightly from 32.5 to 33.4. And the predominant driver of that increase is that unfunded pension liability that we discussed. As I kind of mentioned, it is a bit of a moving target that adjusts every year with the actuarials. And so that's why we're seeing kind of that fluctuation year over year. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions the board may have.
Do we have any questions for Gabe in the financial report? I don't have any questions. Thank you, Gabe.
Thank you, guys.
With that said, I'll move to approve the financial report as presented for May 2024 finance report. Do I have a second?
Second.
Do I have any further discussion? All
Aye.
Any opposed? Financial report for May 2024 is approved. Okay, and that brings us down to our chief's report. Chief Mazulis.
All right, we'll start with Chief Coyle.
Chief Coyle.
All right. I'm gonna breeze through a few things just so I can talk a little bit about Ruidoso, because it's pretty significant it's pretty significant. So, anyhow, the administration, the main driver there for Heidi has been the website development. So took a new tact. Instead of trying to develop a website that is good for a fire department, we went back to the drawing board and followed all the steps that you take to develop a website that is a commerce website or any other website. Because frankly, nobody knows if it's a fire department website, right? They go to the website, they compare it to Amazon or whatever, and they either give it a thumbs up or thumbs down. So, that process includes work by the web developer, training for Heidi, and then additional capabilities for Heidi to be able to maintain the website moving forward. So we expect by July that we'll have substantive completion of that, and then I'll report out then if that's what occurred. But from the navigation to CRR and other things, I believe it's going to be not only just a facelift, but a significant improvement on how people are able to interact, which is timely considering that we have some vacancies that we work to fill, and we want to make sure that from that first time they go to our website on that, it provides them with a positive experience and is reflective of our professionalism. HR, recruitment. So the initial phase of the recruitment closed 2 days ago, and we had 30 qualified candidates that moved forward. And something we did a little different this time than we have in the past is I called each one of the candidates, let them know that we had received their information across from NTN, thanking them for applying and letting them know Kim will follow up with them in the coming week. And I have spoke to, I think it was 24, and then I had texts 3, and there's only 3 that I hadn't communicated with in one way or the other. And I think it was overwhelmingly positive. Some of them you could tell were visibly, they articulated their appreciation for the fact that one of the chief officers was calling them to tell them, thank you for applying and moving on. And honestly, as Chief Mazulis and I were talking about it, that's just that's what you do right now, right? There's a lot more competition for stuff, so you start right at the very beginning, being deliberate about sending messages that kind of inform people to the culture of the organization and how much we value them. We did have a resignation of 1 firefighter position, so we have 2 openings in operations at this time. The other significant effort was, as you saw, I think, as you came upstairs, saw Buzz standing around, sitting around. We had the ergonomic study go by, and we've addressed a lot of those ergonomic needs, which included some different desks to make people more productive, reduce back pain, that sort of thing. There's some chairs coming, but frankly, I don't know. I don't even know if I need a chair anymore.
Hard to sleep.
I need a chair when I'm tired very much. It's a whole different deal. It's funny, but I noticed my steps. I was getting about 3,000 more steps at work a day just by not sitting down. So, what do you know? That stuff works. The operations, we did send an engine to a preposition in Tucson, and they're back now. So we're back to full staffing. We have the capability to send one out if needed. And other than that, there's been a lot of backcountry calls, including one that ended up a really unfortunate fatality. And there's that time of year, right? And so Dory and I are working together to find ways to better communicate to the public that there are certain trails that may or may not be, it may not be a good idea to head out at 10 a.m. Show up and the parking lot's empty, wonder why, right? If there's a Sedona trail, the parking lot's empty, I wonder why. So I'll let her talk more about that, but there's things we're doing to try to work towards that. Pod Miranda, Battalion Chief Miranda, I have to give him a huge shout out because he was successful in getting a national REMS, so rapid extraction module, basically UTV with ropes and paramedics and technicians on it, on wildland fires that is able to reach firefighters that are working some of the most difficult terrain. He was able to develop a national standard, and it was just approved today by the executive board, which is basically the fire leadership from every one of the federal land management agencies. And I was talking to Todd. He was like, yeah, you know, it's cool. And I was like, let's just park on that for a minute, because you had to do this with no authority. You had to bring together an ad hoc group, which included Fire Scope. And as you know, Fire Scope, they were doing it before, they were doing incident management in the way we do it now before we were doing it. A lot of ownership, a lot of strong egos, and Todd was able to push it forward. It was a 2-year effort and get that standard across the line. So that was impressive.
Impressive. Chief, are you saying that's now adopted as a national standard? That's very impressive.
Todd's a bulldog.
Yep. And we had a lot of calls, because he was just trying to figure out when to sit back, when to nudge, when to cajole, and it's different when you don't have range. You're outside of your sphere of influence and you have to build credibility in real time. I was like, oh, that's a big deal. And then finally, you know, it's just yesterday, wasn't it? Jeez, the fire started. Yeah. So yesterday, southwest of Ruidoso, New Mexico, two different fires started. One was called the South Canyon, one is called the South Canyon Fire, and the other is called the Salt Fire. The Salt Fire moved across Highway 70. If you've ever been to that country, it's the road that goes from up like where Cloudcroft is from the south and then into Ruidoso. Across the highway and continued to move to the northeast. And right now it's, I don't know, maybe within 3 miles of Ruidoso Downs. So, which is to the northeast of actual Ruidoso. The other fire, South Canyon Fire, when I was there 20 plus years ago, the area where that fire started was the area that people didn't want a fire to start. As you leave Ruidoso through the communities to the west, it dead ends into the Mescalero Reservation and then a bunch of heavy, thick timber. Well, that's where the fire started. The fire grew from 0 to over 15,000 acres in one operational period and followed 2 of the drainages under red flag conditions into the village of Ruidoso. So all of Ruidoso is evacuated right now. The official report is 600 homes destroyed. I suspect the real number is much higher. You don't want to report something you're not sure about, and it's been very hard to get people in there. Yesterday, because of the way the fire, if you can, like a pincher, the flank that was, the part of the fire that was most threatening the community, they couldn't even use air on because the smoke from the other part of it was laying over. And when fire moves that quick in a day, you can't get next to it to put it out. So, incredibly bad day. And matter of fact, I'm sure it'll end up being the worst in New Mexico history so far. So that's the situation there. And unfortunately, the timing of it is right before the monsoons. So they have, there's a surge of moisture that's going to hit us a little bit and probably just give us dry lightning over the next few days. But they're expecting to get wetting rains Thursday and Friday. So you have these, when fire moves that fast, it burns really hot, makes the soil where it doesn't absorb water. And then you're followed in just 2 days with significant rainfall. And your community is at the end of these 2 canyons. So,
For these, do they know what started the fires?
not yet, they don't. They've had some surge of moistures, or there has been some lightning-caused fires in there, but right now the cause is under investigation.
So is there any containment of the fire right now?
0 at this time.
Keep everything in Coconino and Yavapai counties out.
There's nothing burning here. Between this board meeting and the last board meeting, there was the fire on Camp Navajo. And what was interesting is, it's the trap, right? There's the numbers that we look at, and so when you see those numbers that are, and you look at what they are today relative to what they were when we had other large fires, and so you think, okay, we're doing good. But those are the only things we measure, and there's this thing called the logistics model, but small changes in initial state can make significant outcome changes in the downstream. complex models. And I think Camp Navajo is an example of that. That fire, they got up and ran. And luckily they were able to throw, I think there's 7 air tankers on it at one time, and they were able to keep it on Camp Navajo. But it got everybody's attention because the indices that we look at were reflective of how resistant to suppression we would say that fire was when it took off. So nothing going on right now, but that indicates that the conditions are right for large fire growth. And now, beginning tomorrow and then through the weekend, the moisture is just going to get over to us. So what we probably are going to get is maybe some light sprinkles, strong outflows, and potentially, well, matter of fact, Weather Service talking about dry lightning. So beginning Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So more to come. I know that wasn't very joyful, but that was my report.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions for the chief? Chief Mazulis.
All right, Lori, you're up.
So gonna focus a little more on Inspector Brian Russell. Let me pull up the email that I can read real quick. So Brian recently graduated from the Executive Fire Officer Program, actually last weekend, out at Emmitsburg at the National Fire Academy, becoming one of 124 graduates from the state of Arizona in this program. So overall, it's a 2-year program that he started in his previous organization at Timber Mesa. Attended 4 2-week in-person classes, 3 in-person classes for 1 week, and numerous online classes, sessions, papers, and a capstone project in which he really focused on cultural acceptance of community risk reduction in the fire service and how it's a foreign concept to the majority of people outside of the fire marshal's realm. And part of that capstone, is it aligns with where we're trying to go, not only in Sedona Fire, but in general with the community risk reduction standpoint of creating a mindset and a culture in the fire service and communities across the board that in order for community risk reduction programs to be successful, we need buy-in from everybody that's part of that community. So, it's kudos to him. He definitely lost hours of sleep over it, especially the week that he was getting ready to head to Emmitsburg for his capstone project and graduation. But again, it's not an easy thing to come by. It's not easy to get into either. So for him, he was worried he wasn't going to be able to graduate with his cohort, retiring from Timber Mesa and coming over here. So thank you to Chief Mazulis also for, letting us continue to support him in that effort. All right. Inspections, we're starting to see a lot more sprinkler inspections coming in, fire-wise, defensible space type inspections, for, obvious reasons, the Ruidoso, and even so much so as, even the Wickenburg fire last week that we had that ripped through about 12 different homes and structures down there along Highway 60 is, there's definitely a vested interest in it. So we're doing our best to, go to HOA meetings as requested or one-on-one assessments at people's homes. And really focusing our efforts in trying to build that resilient community, especially in the issues of having insurance being dropped or raised or non-renewed or not even being able to get there. So others, we've got a lot of different developments. As you guys see, our Navajo Lofts across the street here. Right? Jordan Lofts are coming in uptown. We've got the Hilton Garden Inn. There's another 2 hotels that are being remodeled and or built in the village and throughout the area. So we're really busy even on the commercial perspective of things. Although we went into stage 1 fire restrictions on the 6th, we have had our meetings this week, yesterday with the Northern Arizona zone, as well as today with the Central West zone. We will be joining Coconino County as Northern Arizona districts into going into stage 2 effective Friday morning at 8 a.m., which, eliminates the open burning in general. So homes even are now restricted to propane gas shutoffs, Hot work operations will be on a case-by-case basis, so not just to be out cutting and operating out in the open. I'm trying to get back to that slide because I've been bouncing back and forth. Forest Service, only propane-based too, so even in their charcoal briquette and wood fires, those are no longer going to be open. Or I'm looking at all the restrictions, so I've been looking at a lot of them today. I think those are the big ones. Smoking inside vehicles, or if they're going to be of combustible materials. We will be getting a press release out on that sooner than later for Joe and some of the others over here, but hopefully I'll get that out by tomorrow.
Well, I just want to interject. We face a unique challenge this time of year because we've got the fire districts, we've got the national forests, we've got the counties, and right now, as of today, our Coconino County partners and our Northern Arizona partners and fire districts are going to stage 2. On the Yavapai side of things, they're staying in stage 1. So it adds a complexity to CRR and our crews because you gotta call for a fire in a fire pit. You gotta look at the map and say, okay, this is Yavapai County, and it's hopefully it'll align sooner than later, but it adds some complexity when there's different restrictions in different parts of town.
Upcoming events, so 4th of July will be hopefully participating in the City of Sedona's 4th of July Festival at the pool. We'll be back in the dunk tank again, so we'll probably look for volunteers that want to participate in there. And then later this fall,
That's very
For volunteers.
great.
I spent 8 hours in it last year for the most part, so
I think that she's
happy to.
a perfect candidate.
I'm
Did it for
unavailable that day. I've got a knitting class I committed to. I'll probably be there.
then we are going to be hosting, as some of you may know, myself and Brian are board members of the Arizona Fire Marshals Association, and this year, between the Fire Marshals Association and Arizona Fire and Burn Educators Association, we're going to be hosting the first annual Desert Southwest Community Risk Reduction Conference for the state of Arizona, and that'll be here at Station 1, October 7th through the 9th, with the 8th and the 9th kind of being the heavy days with guest speakers on community risk reduction topics, fire marshal concepts. So it's kind of taking that leadership and helping build the future generations of fire inspectors, fire educators, and so we're really looking forward to that. It is the first one in the state that's ever been done. So, kind of leading that charge, if you will, and bringing that up here to where we hope to kind of be the hub of CRR is one of our big goals. So. All right. And so our safety message, this will go touch base on some of the initiatives that we're working on for heat-related illnesses and even injuries on our trails. But safety message this month is, of course, heat-related injuries and illnesses. Using heat as the mnemonic, I think that's the right word. Hydrate, even if you don't feel you're thirsty, continue drinking before, during, and after, indoors, outdoors, to keep you from being dehydrated. Educate yourself. Stay up to date with the latest temperatures, heat index forecasts. Most of us all have smartphones or ways to get, pretty instantaneous temperatures and things that are going on. Try to stay off the trails, or get on the trails early and preferably off by 10:30. And if you do want to go back out later in the afternoon as the sun goes down, or shadows in some areas, you start feeling ill, you need to act quickly. Getting medical attention, especially in the remote areas where we're at, the sooner the better. That way we can get to you and get you advanced treatment as needed. Watching for cramps, rapid pulse, heavy sweating, hot, red skin, dizziness, confusion, nausea, vomiting, and it can progressively go down that rabbit hole very quickly to heat stroke and death. Take it easy. Anyone working outside, exercising outdoors, avoid that overexertion. Take hourly breaks. And that's important not only for our community, but for our firefighters. And we don't have the privilege of taking those hourly breaks and, that work-rest ratio similar to what the military has on wet bulb and, work 10 minutes and you're out 50. We don't get that opportunity. So between myself, Chief Coyle, Chief Kowski, Chief Baker, and from a firefighters initiative, we are actually working on getting some armbands from Yavapai College on loan to monitor heart rate, temperature, and that stress on the firefighters that they would be able to wear on calls, and we'll be able to monitor, so long as there's cell service, live updates on what those responders are feeling, and using that data to, see how the stressors are impacting our responders, but also to help create some messaging for the public of showing that impact on what these rescues, especially back-to-back, do to our responders day in and day out. In terms of messaging, for the public is, instead of, have you guys heard of All Trails, or Onyx, different apps, and so to speak, where they give trail ratings as easy, hard, and expert. But what we want to do is actually take our first responders' knowledge of, responding to these and even recreating on them, and creating our own all trails, so to speak, of, the bridge, Devil's Bridge, for example. We have a lot of rescues on that bridge. A lot of the trail sites say that it's an easy to moderate, but they're not taking into consideration that the parking lots to these add a couple miles to it. It's a pretty easy trail until you get to the trail itself, and then you hit steep areas that are exposed. It's harder for us to get back there. It takes length of time. So going over anything that, could not be perceived, or that could be perceived as hard, and getting that message out. So for people to see proper footwear, proper hydration, good times of the day and the year, really, to try to hike these locations. I think, unless you guys have any questions, that's all I have.
I think it's excellent to add our opinion about the difficulty of a trail or what might be met in terms of hazards, but how do you get that out to the public?
So we'll be using social media, and I believe we do have a YouTube channel. If not, we will, sharing longer segments on each different trailhead and really targeting the ones that we have the more frequent rescues, and then working our way down to the less frequent. So we'll be picking, the ones that our responders see more regularly and then between social media, and we've got a really good partnership with the Park Service or the Forest Service, as well as the city and the county, so trying to get out to where other maps and information are as well.
Okay, thank you very much. Chief?
Right, let's move on.
Gift.
The what? That Kim. Gift? Whatever that means. The everything else division. Yeah. Divisions. The junk drawer. Yeah, no doubt. No, I mean that in a everybody. It's the most important drawer in the kitchen. Oh yeah, thanks.
Write that down.
So, yeah, would you quote that one? The quotable. So quickly, just the stuff that's on here. The map, that's not meant for you to decipher much detail, but that map, mostly blue dots, that's a heat map showing the first quarter incidents for Sedona fire. I bring that up, because GIS does a lot of things, and we don't often speak to that, but what Dory was saying, Matt Spinelli, myself, and some EMS folks have been working on, actually, it was right as the heat incidents EMS calls were starting to ramp up here, where we were starting to figure out where they have happened historically, and if there's a corollary with the
influx of tourism, including the heat in the valley, Phoenix Valley, if that's driving people here, and then we have more incidents, a lot of different variables, which Matt brings to the table that some of the analytics that I wouldn't have thought of, a cool way to look at it. But we're building like an internal dashboard, if you will, or at least a site where we can see where these heat emergencies are, and even in some preliminary lists, these are our bread and butter calls now. You know, we're a fire department that runs hike-out calls. So admitting that's job one, right? And we see it, and the criticality, the complexity, potential complexity, the number of units assigned to these, and the duration and commitment time, these are our longest calls. So it's a response problem as well. So even augmenting response, do we add a unit automatically when the temperature goes up a certain point so that we can help the crews themselves to recycle and rotate? Alternative staffing models even. But we have to prove it first through things like data and mapping and giving you folks some visuals to see where we're going and where things are happening. So that's just a little homage to GIS. He's doing all kinds of things, including pre-planning with some of the crews, some of the nursing homes in the village of Oak Creek. If there was an incident there, working with CRR on some tracking things. Matt does a lot of GIS things, but he also is amazing at building forms to collect data in the field. He really has some strengths there. So we're exploiting those all over the place. And the dashboard stuff that's usually up here, Matt is constantly whipping us into shape and reminding us that we need to keep that relevant and add important information for our folks on the internal facing side, and then on the public side, like in our foyer and in this one, so that the public knows what we're up to too if they visit. Let's see, telecom, I'm coming up to speed with slowly. Thank goodness Bob and now, or Bob and Josh, and now Justin and Johnny. It'll be great to get to know what they're up to and learn from them. Teams coming together, like Chief Mazulis and Chief Coyle have said, they're coming in and hitting the ground running and coming up to speed with the things that they need to learn to really help Bob and help all of us push the button and hope something comes out on the other end in the radio world. Bob and his crew are always troubleshooting things and putting out fires in the telecom world. The fire engines, you know, they push the button and nothing comes out quite a bit. So they're delaying some of their long-term projects to continually fix some of the older things. One of the notable things that Chief Coyle sent me was Bob went over a couple lengthy meetings for a scope of work with, and I just forgot the name of the company that's doing the upgrade stuff, Zetron. So they're moving forward on that. That was an agenda item in the past. So steps are being made to prioritize the upgrade of our telecom system too, and Bob's deep into that. He sent a 3-page document of what he does, and it is astounding. And thanks. Josh is here today, even keeping the ball rolling for us in the telecom world. Fleet-wise, we hope to purchase a new chassis and remount an ambulance here this evening. So there's more work than I had anticipated on getting that done, including last-minute stuff. We've been up to that. And then our 2 Type 1 fire trucks that are in Wisconsin, they started being manufacturing cutting metal June 4th. And we're hoping the pictures they're sending us, of which this is one,
Are really our truck.
that's our fire truck, allegedly. So Chief Coyle suggested having them hold up a newspaper to prove it. So that is one of our fire trucks. They're 2 of the same, they're just identical twins that they're building right now. And that was a purchase that the board approved in late 2022, I want to say. That's how long it takes to get a fire truck going. And so parts that have to be sent to the factory so they can install things, and a lot of scrambling lately, but it seems to be, for now,
cruising right along. I asked for an update on when they thought we might be able to receive those, or at least do an inspection for receipt of those, and haven't heard back. Initially, it was 100, 110, 120 days from when they cut the first piece. So we'll see. No, we won't hold them to that. We'll just be glad to get them. And then, is the next picture on there? Oh, no? Okay. In the board packet, there's a picture of the EMS week stuff, I think. So even though that was maybe before the last meeting, no, it was after. Okay. So it was the 50th anniversary of EMS week in the United States this year. And we hosted, trying to reboot the open house scene here at SFD. And it was very well attended, including by some of you in the village of Oak Creek. The picture on the right, lower right, is one of those. The top, that head that you can barely see is this cute little Missoula's kid helping the chief cook.
No, she wasn't. She was eating chips.
Okay. But one of our members and his daughter taught hands-only CPR throughout the day for anyone who wanted to do that. He estimates 20-plus people sat with him and went over that. Chief Booth had a booth there as well with some fire extinguisher training and some fall prevention information. The chief cooked burgers and dogs. And we figure, I quit counting new faces at about 80 because it just got pretty busy where I couldn't tell who was there. And that, I'll tell you, that reminded me of when I first got hired here, and people coming to Station 4 and floating through it. It was a really great feeling. A lot of locals and a lot of people who were getting their mail next door just kind of popped in to see what was up. So all in all, a successful event. Very happy to do it. I think we'll have more of those in the future if Chief Missoula's has his way.
And just, I really want to anchor into them having a theme or being anchored to something, and not just, hey, let's cook for people. You know, like we've discussed bringing back our health fair, or attaching it to more of a fire wise or fire safe community piece or something like that. And you don't know what you don't know, and it was the feedback I got personally from the public, again, to Buzz's point, reminded me that it does matter, because a lot of our public functions as a district, we don't have a lot of participation from the public, and it was proof of concept once again. And so I'm excited about it. And there, from a time commitment from staff, it's not a huge time sink, and we have prepackaged stuff, so it doesn't take away from our daily mission, and I think it's hugely beneficial to the community. So I thank everybody that helped coordinate it.
Or firehouse. What we're up to, so it was a good thing.
And
yeah,
you were asked about multiple times, and you didn't make it. Some lady that's a rock hound as well was very upset that Joseph wasn't there. She kept asking me, is he here yet? Is he here yet? I said, I don't know if he's coming.
And then finally, the picture on the lower left, that's a picture of the Red Rock, Oak Creek Fire District, I believe. Can't quite read it from here. But that's one of the first, if not the first, ambulance in Sedona's history right there. And it was that's in the like 1958 or something like that, I think. Don't quote me on that. I wrote it down and I don't have it in front of me.
If I'm not mistaken, one of the ambulance attendants in that photo is Battalion Chief Wassels.
I think that's the one too, yeah. So anyway, just a little history with the 50th anniversary of EMS week, though that's longer than 50 years ago. I was looking at some old pictures, and I think that's a pretty cool one, because here we are still going. That's it for me.
I have a question for you. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Okay.
No, I've got it.
With the data that Matt Spinelli's putting together for all this blue on this map, as you saw, are we looking at that to perhaps increase staffing during those critical times, or create different methods of responding with additional resources? How does that kind of play into the practicality of getting to the victim or the patient.
Let me go for a chiefly answer. We are constantly recognizing the talents we have in-house, and we've gotten out of our own ways as chief officers and realized that we have people that are really smart, and they are bringing things to us we didn't know we could do. And so, to your question, yes, I can't in good faith say, hey, we need another ambulance, or we need another fire truck, or we need anything without supporting documentation and data. And I guess the point I'm making is, more so now than ever, we've got so many mechanisms to create and analyze and evaluate that data that yes, maybe, no. To Buzz's point, Phoenix Fire Department does these backcountry rescues with a battalion response. They have a technical rescue group. They have a couple engines and supporting ambulances and a battalion chief. We do it with 3 folks on an engine and 2 people in an ambulance and a battalion chief. So it is our bread and butter. Is that still the model we should use? And we've brought work comp in to evaluate our equipment and the clothing that we wear. We've done things like add the sun shirts and sun hats, and had budget approved dollars to provide better, lighter weight equipment. And so there's been a progression over the years. We're not stagnant, but I don't know if the answer is more people on these calls or up staffing on the hot weekends, but that nothing's off the table. We're evaluating everything right now. And these tools are just one example of the things that give us more horsepower in making hopefully informed decisions, not just, yeah, I think we should because, one thing we did discover is we felt that our hikeouts were more frequent and longer, and that's not necessarily the case, but the complexity of them is increasing because it's not Bell Rock all the time. It's some of these trails, whatever's popular on Instagram becomes the new trail we're going to rescue on. And so there's some complexity to it. People are getting deeper and higher. And so, yes, to your point, we're going to use everything to evaluate the needs of the district and serving the community.
And if I may,
please.
The 2 other areas with the heat stuff, even evaluating and coming up with new equipment or things that are out there that other people use. Is it worth getting this new thing at a cost? The data supports that now. So the things like cooling sheets, the
ice bags
that people are using. BC Miranda sent me a thing just yesterday that they use in the backcountry that in essence does that, but you can deploy it quickly and it has this rapid cooling effect. And all that's allowable under our medical direction currently, provided we're monitoring those people. So figuring some of that out, it's data supported now, so the juice is worth the squeeze, if you will. There's value there for the community and for our folks. The other area that comes to mind is the response pattern, like traffic. The data, when we built Station 6, supported a certain response plan, including which station turns left and right and takes this call versus that call. The traffic pattern is almost 180 degrees opposite what it was. It used to be the Y was it's still this way, but the Y used to be the congestion point, but it was clear sailing after Tlaquepaque, heading towards the village of Oak Creek. Going into town from Station 6 in the chapel was never a problem. Well, that's now, it takes an hour to get to Uptown. So even that, as we look at the data and look at which is all part of what GIS can give us, you overlay drive time data of how long it takes the average Google user and then where our incidents are. When we look at the response plans with dispatch, we're having Station 6 turn left instead of turning right. We're having Station 4 come now. So things like that certainly are supported with the data, and the usefulness is endless. It really is. Our problem would be proving it to ourselves before we act with the data, and doing things systematically so we can evaluate if that change was effective. That's the next piece, right? So,
Thank you.
I had a question, but you answered it before I asked the question, which is about the ice bags and the.
Yeah.
But what I was going to add to it is whoever is doing the social media, the Facebook, doing a great job. And, but something like that, the ice bags were on Phoenix News several nights. So things like that we could communicate to the community that are resources that we have that we're using for the community would be great. See some of those things in addition to the great work we're doing. So.
I'm sure that's a good point. A lot of times we focus on the big deal that's happening or the people, but the stuff and the means that we do it is important too. There's comfort there for folks, for sure.
Any other questions for Chief Bukowski? Chief Mazulis.
All right, I'm going to butcher Jordan's presentation. He was forcibly taken from his home and forced to go on vacation to celebrate his kid's graduation. So we said it's okay. So Jordan, as usual, has been very busy. He got the battalion chief task book updated, and it's gonna re-release on July 1st. And primarily, it's some of the new functions that our battalion chiefs are required to do, and a lot of it's software based and just process based. We took some project heavy things away from our battalion chiefs and distributed that workload, and it's more functional into operations, and the softwares have become more complex. Just being able to fill a vacancy while you're out on a hike out for 4 hours to make sure that we're not understaffed the next day, and just having to navigate all of that. And so it's been great. It's been overdue, and it's good. We will do a captain's test this spring for our current and expected vacancies. And with that, we're going to provide an opportunity this fall for a leadership academy, and kind of some of the higher level things we like our company officers to know, and to help prepare our folks for the testing process, and more importantly for the position, and really bring in some outside leadership examples and managers from around the state, in addition to kind of a focus on our philosophy and helping. It's just another tool in their toolbox. We'll have Arizona Fire School is coming up again in September, and then we're continuing to do blue card training, which is our incident command. It's how we operate and how we have common speak on the fire ground, and we're just getting more people trained up in that class. With our wellness program, it with some moderate to low expenses, we're getting some different rack and containment systems for the weights and the different equipment that we have to keep it off the ground, reduce slip, trips, and falls. He's been evaluating opportunities to reduce some of the injuries we see with the work comp reporting, and that's one area is training and working out, as we're not really us, but statewide, it's a work comp issue. So just making our gyms more functional and safer. And then, excuse me, I believe I sent all of you the Asher, the active shooter drill after action review, and that was a process in itself. Planning the drill was a heavy lift, but beyond that, just getting all the players together to thoughtfully produce an honest document that evaluates how they did, and because, in every environment you have people that want to be seen as, and so they may snow over some of the details. And I think the group that put on that drill did a good job of defining our deficiencies and ways we can fix it moving forward. So that's a brief overview of the 100 other things that Jordan's working on right now. So with
Snake training.
Oh, we did have the snake training, and I will let Captain D-Rod speak to that.
Yeah, he's
David, would you, as our snake expert?
Yeah.
Our venomous reptile.
But we brought in a doctor Dr. Novak from NAU, who's a herpetologist, and she has a program that educates about the different snakes in our region, how to handle them, how to relocate them, when we should, when we shouldn't, what species of snakes are federally protected, and how we manage those. In Oak Creek Canyon, we have what is a narrow-headed garter snake, and that's one of the federally protected snakes. And then we have a Mexican garter snake that is in more marshy areas on the lower Verde, along the Verde River. And then just the rattlesnakes we have around Sedona, Diamondback, Arizona black rattlesnake, and blacktail rattlesnakes, along with gopher snakes and king snakes, and being able to identify those. And then building safe handling guidelines along with community education components so we can create some awareness with the homeowners. A lot of people, especially in Sedona, like to have bird feeders. And these bird feeders also feed rodents. Rodents feed snakes, and snakes come into our yards. And so teaching them to maybe remove these or push these to the edges of their property to clean up wood piles or just to clean up general vegetation, because snakes typically will come out for food, shelter, or water. And just understanding how far to relocate them so we don't disrupt the ecosystem, stuff like that. And so all of our members in Sedona got to go through that presentation along with live, safe snake handling. And through that, we were able to purchase new snake tongs, snake buckets, and chaps so that we're operating safely and preventing any unnecessary snake bites. So that's pretty much what it was.
First time ever, and I've been doing snake stuff for 26 years, and first time ever we've been trained on it.
So in the past, we built buckets, Home Depot 5-gallon buckets with a lid, and got those trash picker-upper tongs, and which we found out those aren't the best for snakes, and we found out our bucket wasn't the most sufficient for snakes, and then the chaps. But the impetus for it was, one, we train on things that are dangerous, so that sometimes, so we need to train on the totality of things that are dangerous in our job, and the snake handling is not going away. The other piece is we've got some folks that are very, very confident, but yet concerned about the environment, and they didn't want to hurt them. And if you got 2 acres adjoining the forest and you have a snake in your yard, well, that's part of the deal, and that's part of what we're going to do next is a public education piece where it's like, hey, you live in the desert, you'll see javelinas, you're going to see snakes, you're going to see different critters. And then the other piece of it is I don't know how hard the federal government would come after us, but I believe if you mishandle a narrow-headed garter snake in Oak Creek Canyon, I believe the starting fine is $10,000. And so we don't budget for federal fines, and
Nor should we.
Yeah, nor should we. So, and to Chief Coyle's point, it was pretty easy when we recognized that we'd never taught anybody how to do it. And when I was on probation, we were like, yeah, you just grab it like this, and that was the training. And so it was really good. I've known Dave a long time, and Jordan's known him longer, and I was not aware that he was such a snake fanatic. And when I was talking to Jordan about who we're going to get to do this training, he was, I got a guy. So, yeah, it was great. It was really good training.
I'm not a snake guy. I just had a lot of experience with them in the village of Oak Creek. And
That makes you a snake guy.
I started feeling bad about putting them in the same spot for a very long time. And there had to be a better way.
We know who to call.
He takes them home.
End of report for training.
Okay, that leaves it all up to you now.
All right. Next one. There's our, I was looking down too long. Call summary in the year over year. Man, which one can I read better? Well, if there aren't any questions, we'll move on to the next slide. It's really blurry to me. Huh? Oh, yeah, you got it. Yeah, so year over year, we're down a little bit, but it's just the nature of, it's the nature of what's gonna happen, you know. We'll see an uptick with travelers and everything else, and so, I guess our off-district calls, that's one thing we've seen a slight uptick with this past couple months, and that's where we go help our neighbors. And Buzz is on the, we call it the operations committee with dispatch, and he's actively working with the other agencies in the Verde Valley to, we have some run cards that aren't representative of our current reality. I'll leave it at that. And we have some old territorial ways of thinking about how we provide for this community. And for example, when neighboring communities have stood up new apparatus, they've removed us from the run cards, and geographically and road miles wise, we'll always beat them to certain areas. And so why aren't we working together? And then the other thing we've seen with the more complex incidents throughout the Verde Valley, you know, we've had Verde Valley's battalion chief up here running calls in the past couple of months, and vice versa. So at Verde Valley Chiefs, we've been really evaluating, making sure we're staying relevant with what our current situation is regionally. And then two, Buzz has been working with the operations group to make sure our run cards reflect that. So that's the biggest change. And then again, we spoke to the hike outs, and the frequency is pretty steady, but the complexity seems to be getting more complex. So, and again, Station 1 and 3 are winning the race for calls. We got Station 4 is up a bit. I'm sorry, Station 3. Well, they're all up. Station 5, Slide Rock is active and awake. At 21%, part of my other little piece, I did an evaluation of call volume for my state park proposal that I submitted, and 21% of our calls at Station 5 are at Slide Rock State Park. So I thought that was interesting.
Water gets warmer, it'll get worse.
Yeah,
When the moss grows, it gets worse.
Yeah, because it gets more Slide Rock.
Fall State Park.
Dispatch notified times, I forgot to put the comparables. It's going down. Everything's going down still. And again, I attribute that dispatch notified time, it's purely a mechanism of them getting their folks trained up and fully staffed. And so, and the newer dispatch supervisor is doing a fantastic job of creating an environment that makes people want to stay. I'll leave it at that. And in ambulance road time, we have had a bit of an uptick in Phoenix interfacility transfers. And again, that's another metric we're evaluating. We haven't gotten to the point where it's been, we've totally taxed our resources, but I think we're getting closer. But again, I'm not going to make those assumptions without the data.
Is the reason for the uptick in that, is it because we're full down in Cottonwood, or the severity of the city?
It depends on who you ask. It could be because of daily staffing challenges with the hospital, whether certain physicians, or it could be just patient volume with they are taxed, or they don't have enough nurses to open up part of a floor. It could be a seasonal increase in need. It could be a fluke that, you know, we had a couple, relatively minor injuries or fractures, and then they get an appendicitis that comes in. And so there are many different reasons for it. Again, another thing we're evaluating, and in concert with a bunch of new legislation that requires us to track and report that data differently. So that could be a whole nother meeting. And we've been having them with labor because we're trying to figure out the why, and so there's a lot to it.
That takes our crew
It does.
away for quite some time.
5 hours to go to Phoenix.
Are we still also doing backup at the Sedona Medical Center?
On occasion, they'll call us to assist.
I just happened to see one
Yeah.
on,
It's I don't have the numbers, but occasionally they'll have a complex patient and they'll call us to assist, whether it's with medical care or to expedite the transport. But we
They have someone put arrest. It's highly
Yeah.
advantageous to the customer because
yeah,
crews are good at that.
yeah.
And everybody knows their role.
Yeah, a critical patient in the lobby could quickly become an EMS call if they're full there. And then we would go to that. Sometimes when we bring a patient, we stick with them. Just help. It's just sort of longer transition, you know. But you're right, there's, those will also go out as, just for point of clarification, an EMS call at 3700 West Highway 89A, that may be an emergency interfacility transfer. They have to go through the system as a 911 call in order to triage it effectively. So sometimes that's what those are. That's still a critical patient, obviously, by definition, but some of those come out.
I just happened to see one on Pulse Point.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah, sometimes it's that. Sometimes it's just us helping, you know.
Yeah.
They don't have a lot of support there, like a hospital does at all.
And they, you know, I was invited to sit on the NAH President's Council, and one fact that was brought to my attention that I guess I knew but I didn't realize was that the cat's out of the bag, and there's a lot more people traveling from around the Verde Valley to come to Sedona Emergency Center because they know they can get in quicker, but then they're complex, going to be admitted patients, and so we're getting a lot of they won't go to Verde Valley anymore. They'll come from Rimrock, Camp Verde, or Cottonwood up here because they know they'll get seen quicker, assuming whatever they're dealing with is minor, and then they're a patient that needs to be admitted. So that's added to it as well. And so, and he being the CEO didn't have a data set on that yet, but they do have an increase in numbers, and just anecdotally through conversations with patients, they say, oh yeah, we come up here because it's quicker. So I've talked to him about us digging into that data a little more to support our mission.
A lot more of Camp Verde Rimrock addresses.
Yeah. Yeah, and so
Healthcare system management. There's a lot there, right?
Yeah. I neglected. I read the agenda with station responses, and I'm gonna slide in station statuses into that before we move on to the purchases, and this will be brief. So, city manager entered into her position, almost 8 weeks ago now, and had some complexities she had to deal with right out of the chute. So I slow rolled. We met. She has all the documentation we submitted to the previous city manager, and I've formally requested that they agendize it for a city council meeting. So I'm waiting to hear back, and that's related to moving forward with the land exchange proposal. Station 5, I submitted per their requests. They had some questions about the state park. I submitted a land use proposal with them. And then as Chief Coyle was archiving some things, I also submitted the Station 5 land proposal that was prepared for Sedona Fire in 2005 and the one that was prepared in 2017, because I thought it was important for the current state park board, who hasn't been around very long, to recognize that we've been trying to do this since 2005, at least per our documentation. So they've got all the historical documentation, and one big plus is it's got a lot of the we spent a lot of money on architectural renderings and as-built drawings in the past, and so a lot of the work, we're ahead of the curve if they choose to move forward with us. So with that, purchases over 10,000. HVAC at Station 3, nothing about, if it blows cold air, nothing's inexpensive anymore, and our stuff's aging. And then some software purchasing, Gabe spoke to it. Just as our software packages came up, it's just the time of year where we renew our software packages, and then boutique recruiting was fees associated with hiring and recruiting our IT positions. So those are those purchase orders over 10. And then some thank you cards. We got those in addition to a couple of really nice emails this week, and it's much appreciated. And then there's Gene, last meeting getting his brick. And that concludes the report.
Thank you, Chief.
Okay.
Any other questions for the chief? Okay, next item on the agenda is, discussion, possible action, discussion, and possible approval, signing of the IGA with Cottonwood Dispatch Center.
All right, this fall we initiated the process. So our contract with dispatch is expired this year. This fall we initiated the process and expressed our desire with the city of Cottonwood, we being myself and Chief Johnson, to retool the contract in its entirety because it speaks to us as customers, and we want to model what they do over at the Prescott Regional Dispatch Center, whereas a few of our asks included us being written into the contract as partners, not customers. We want clearly defined capital outlay on behalf of, we want the city to put away some of the dollars for capital improvements that support the entirety of the system. There were some capital dollars that are earmarked in our fees that are for their infrastructure, and when we asked at a point certain when that building's paid off, where do those dollars go, we couldn't get a solid answer. So and the fees have averaged an increase of 5% year over year since we left Sedona Fire Dispatch and went to Cottonwood Dispatch. And we also asked that there's a more clear representation of why fees are going up and what it is we're getting for those increases, and a more clear picture of how dollars are spent. So that was the intent. We started in the fall. City of Cottonwood has some complexities on their council right now. They lost their city attorney and they lost their police chief, which is the chain of command we utilize to negotiate contracts for the dispatch center. And while the dispatch supervisor is outstanding, her being new to her position, we through conversation with her and the group, we agreed with proposing to extend our current contract until they get seated police chief and a city attorney and a council, so that we can negotiate in kind for our future. And so that was the reason why we were okay with extending the contract for a year, and that's why it's here before you tonight. And I'll also want to add that sometime in the recent past year or two, Mr. Whittington had asked the city of Cottonwood's attorney to change some language. That did not occur. Mr. Whittington indicated today that language was just to, quote, clean it up a little bit, and it doesn't impact anything that would bind us legally or create an environment that would be problematic for the district. And the new city attorney has indicated to Mr. Whittington that we'll clean up that language with the rewrite of the contract.
Yeah, I had a discussion with Bill 2 days ago about that very thing, and he feels confident with the contract the way it's written, that to go ahead and approve as with the proposed changes to follow. So, and I don't have it here before me, but to sign, so.
We'll get it.
Okay. With that, I guess I should make a motion to approve that, but we haven't seen it. You haven't read it. I don't think nobody's really seen it yet. Or has it come out? I don't think it's come out.
They were finalizing it, but yeah, so I'll get it to you.
Till that till next month? To have it back on there, or
Till July.
y'all can see it and kind of review it and then move to approve it. Are you good with that?
Yeah.
Up July.
Oh yeah, it's 2 weeks away.
July meeting is just a couple weeks away.
Yeah.
Discussion, possible action, possible approval of the board-approved communication request to replace the ambulance chassis remount in the amount not to exceed $233,000. Steve or Buzz, who's going to present that?
I'll do an intro. So, for those of you who've been on the board a while, we started the re-chassis process a while ago. Ultimately, what it does is when the moving parts start to wear out and mile out, the box is generally still good. The patient compartment so replacing it onto a new chassis. The price has gone up a lot from our first remount, but it still is cheaper than an ambulance. And then in addition to that, some statutory changes that the state put into law last year created an environment where it added cost to our remount, and Buzz can kind of go into some of that.
Yeah, first off, the cost to remount them, which Lewis set up years ago, the longevity and the dollar value is it's exponential. I looked up just in general. No one will give you a price quote on a new one until you spec it, right? But similar ambulance to what we're looking at remounting with the new chassis, with a 1 year older chassis, it's $325,000 for the same ambulance we're remounting. So it's in essence $100,000 savings to take that box off and put it on the new truck. The other added benefit is we walk through with a punch list and say, hey, that's torn there. There's a scratch here. This one will be a test with a couple new infectious disease control methods within it. There's the air that recirculates through the patient compartment has UV scrubbers, if you will, embedded in them. And then it also has decontamination light that when they come back, shut the doors, it goes and it decontaminates the surface. There's data that says it's amazing. There's data that says it depends on who you're. So we're trying to look into the future, and so we can add technology like that into an existing older box or patient compartment. So that part was cool too. Additionally, there's seatbelt that we've spoken to the state